we shifted our approach to investing to make sure that we're always building in the end, building in what matters personally. And that's so diverse and so different for everybody. But it was an important reminder for me to always begin from the end and then build your business around whatever that end is. And you can do it.
You're listening to Investing for Good, a show that brings you the stories and strategies of people who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. And now, here are your hosts, Annie Dickerson and Julie Lamb.
Hey, Julie, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you? Hanging in there?
Oh, yeah. How are your kids today?
They're okay. I must have heard mommy at least 150 times before we recorded this morning. But feeling hopeful. The sun is shining. We're supposed to have some really nice weather this week, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We've been talking a lot about Plants vs. Zombies over here. My kids are super into Plants vs. Zombies, and so I'm trying to use that to teach them a little bit of science, a little bit of math, a little bit of financial literacy. Plant more sunflowers so you get more sun, so you get little
so you
lessons.
Don't turn into a zombie or something.
So you can fight the zombie.
Oh, okay. I know nothing about what that is. That a video game?
It is.
I have no idea.
I'm so glad I went to game design school. Otherwise, I would have no idea what they're talking about. And so
I have no clue. But that sounds fun. That's something that I've been trying to figure out is how I can take a topic and then teach it to an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
I know, right?
All at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I'm all about efficiency. So It's like, how can I teach them the same topic on a chalkboard? And I ask each of them like different questions. And then, your kids are have 3 years between them.
Yeah.
So it's tough to.
It is.
How do you,
it is not
adjust
easy.
for that?
And I was actually an elementary school teacher, so I actually taught.
Right.
And
That's
it's
right.
hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's way different teaching your own kids versus teaching a class full of other people's kids. Oh my gosh. Other people's kids don't hang on you and go, "Mommy, mommy, mommy."
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's one thing I realized throughout all of this is I'm no educator.
Yeah.
I am no educator. That is for sure. My patience runs super thin. But it's been fun getting to know them and understand what their learning styles are like and all of that. So yeah.
Well, I am very excited to share with our audience our conversation today with Chad Carson of CoachCarson.com. Mm-hmm. He has quite a story. He started investing in his early 20s, ahead of the 2008 recession. And he went to a seminar, learned how to flip houses and thought, this is the best thing ever. And he followed it. He actually took action and did it and amassed all of these flip properties. And then 2008 happened. And he talks about that in the conversation about what happened. And the lessons that he took away from that are so applicable to everything that's going on now with the pandemic. And I think it's such a valuable conversation for people to hear.
Yeah, it's always really interesting to hear about people who have been investing in real estate since before the last crash, because you and I haven't, and we came in at the bottom, and so this will be our first recession or downturn that we go through. But it's always interesting to hear the lessons from them because there's always golden nuggets that you can take away. And one of the things that he had brought up that it's just such a good reminder for me is that in life, we have many different currencies, right? Like money is just one currency. And then he brought up that time and flexibility are other types of currency. And when you think about being rich or being successful, and if you can build your life to have more time or more flexibility, that is just the same, if not better, as having lots of money in the bank, right? And so, understanding how to balance all of those things in your life to live the life that you want is all that we talked about in the beginning part of the show. But yeah, it was a great one.
Such a good conversation. All our listeners, you're going to love this one. Here is our conversation with Chad Carson. Chad, how are you?
I am doing great, Annie. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Julie.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have you here. Now, Chad, you and I first met at a conference a few years ago, and I remember being instantly impressed with how genuinely you care about helping other people and how approachable you are despite all the success that you've seen. And in fact, you say that your mission is to do more of what matters, which here at Investing for Good and at Goodegg Investments, we love that. So tell us what that means to you, and then tell us a little bit about how you started this crazy journey to get to where you are today.
Thank you. Well, thanks for that introduction. I think the do what matters motto is something when I started blogging and helping other people out a little bit on the side. I've always been a real estate investor, and that's what I did after I graduated from college, actually. And I think the reason that's resonated with me is it's been an aspirational goal, a way of sort of quantifying or just putting in words what I thought the why behind a lot of my investing was. That, I like buying properties, I like rentals, I like building wealth. But to me, I have a business partner, and the two of us got into sort of a challenge in that we were buying a lot of properties, having some of that quote success of having some financial success. But then we realized we were really busy and we were doing all this stuff in the business, and the business was kind of taking a life of its own. And it was right in 2007, right before the last downturn. And we just took this moment to step back from it and say, what if we made a list of things that we actually enjoyed doing? And irregardless of money, just write what's important to you. How would you spend your time? And I wasn't married at the time yet, and I didn't have kids like I do now. But the things I wrote down were like playing pickup basketball in the middle of the day, or taking a hike in the woods, or traveling, which I really enjoyed doing, speaking foreign languages. They were things that some of them cost some money, but it was very quantifiable. It was pretty limited, the amount of money. And playing basketball in the middle of the day, they didn't take any money, but it took a lot of time. So it sort of informed my whole approach, and we shifted our approach to investing to make sure that we're always building in the end, building in what matters personally. And that's so diverse and so different for everybody. But it was an important reminder for me to always begin from the end and then build your business around whatever that end is. And you can do it. You can change it and make it look like something that serves you in your life instead of being a slave to whatever direction your business has to go, or what other people think success means.
That is so insightful. I think most people just start out, and whether they're launching a business or they're working to climb the corporate ladder, they're just like, okay, what's my next project? What's my next deadline? They don't stop to think, well, what's the end goal here? What am I trying to achieve? And right. I think it's brilliant that you started there, and then you realize that, hey, it doesn't actually take that much to build this life that I actually want.
And I didn't figure it out at first. I just want to make that point that I'm more of somebody who learns by running into a wall and say, wait a minute, I just bumped my nose and that was not right. So it wasn't very brilliant on my part, other than just like getting a lot of bruises, really.
What bruises and what wall did you run into that made you come to that realization and do that exercise?
Yeah, it was actually, we went to a seminar, I was 23 years old, and there was a really impressive lady who was flipping a lot of houses, and her business model was like flipping 50 houses per year. And we had the capability. My business partner and I thought, well, we could do that. She just showed us how to do it. Let's go do it. And we ended up 3 years later, not doing the exact same model she did, but we bought almost 50 properties in 1 year, 2007, and 33 closings. We flipped a lot of houses. We made a lot of money, but that was the thing. The wall we ran up into was that realization that, like, wait a minute, like we just borrowed her goals, and she was impressive, but like those were not our goals. And we also had the background of the recession, which is kind of appropriate now because we're, financial crisis at the moment, that we started realizing, wait a minute, like we're making decisions that aren't even going to make us happy, that might put us more at risk financially. And like, wait a minute, let's take a step back. So that was more the bumping into the wall at that point.
Gotcha. Well, so take us back to that time. So it's 2007, you've bought 50 houses, and 2008 hits. What happened? So what happened to your portfolio at that point?
Yeah, so there were some things we did really well in 2007. Like some of these were just flips. So like we had some flips that we made $50,000-$60,000 on a flip. So that money went in the bank, and that was good. And the fortunate thing we did, I'll tell you some good things we did well. I'll tell you some things we did badly, and you probably learn more from the bad things. But the good things we did was we lived pretty frugally. And I got married that year, actually later in that year. And my wife, when we moved into a fourplex that I had already bought before that. So I was house hacking, and we lived in unit number 2 of the fourplex, and we lived for free. We didn't have any overhead. And so like those were good. Like we just didn't spend a lot of money. We enjoyed camping. We enjoyed playing basketball. I mean, there was nothing like expensive in our lifestyle. So that was good. So the money we did make, we just kind of set in the bank pretty much. But the bad news was we needed that money in 2008 and 9 because some of the deals we bought were in the wrong locations, or we underestimated repair cost. We underestimated the amount of maintenance a property would take. Like, so we bought some older rental properties and we thought, oh, this is going to make $200 per month in cash flow. And then we learned the hard way about capital expenses and the fact that we didn't allocate for money to replace roofs and replace these old things in the houses. So we kind of had a trial by fire of learning not only about those mistakes that a lot of new people make, but we made them really fast because we grew so fast, and we had to absorb some of those reserves that we had saved over the years. And we had to really adjust because 2008 and 9 was not as easy to flip initially. So we had to become landlords. We had to learn how to manage properties, build systems, learn how to work with our tenants. We learned how to owner finance properties at the time. We sold a lot of properties with owner financing. So I guess the theme was we had to adjust really quickly and learn fast, which I think a lot of people are going to have to do now too. It's the one constant is everything changes. So this is going to be a new market with new realities, new opportunities, new challenges. And that's just, you want to be nimble as an investor to be able to take advantage of that. And I think that was the mistake we made. We got too big, too fast, and we were lucky enough to have some reserves to lean on.
What market was this in?
So I'm in Clemson, South Carolina. So it's a small college town in the kind of halfway in between Charlotte and Atlanta. So the bigger region is they call it the Charlanta corridor. It's in the south, a lot of growth, a lot of development. But our little pocket is a college town, and so we evolved into student rentals. It's kind of about half what we do now. But we also have houses. We also have some little small mobile homes, some other things, just kind of regular rentals as well.
Wow, I can only imagine. So you go to this seminar, you're like, we're going to do this thing, and you actually do it. You achieve success, and then the world throws you throws a wrench in things, and then you're like, oh no, so now we got to pivot. We got to figure out what to do next. And everybody's scrambling. And I think you're absolutely right. During those times, as now, you have to be nimble. So let me ask you about now. So what are you seeing now? Let's fast forward to today. I know you also do a lot of real estate coaching. Are you still doing flipping? Are you still doing student rentals now? And then what are you seeing as a result of the current financial crisis?
Yeah, so our business has evolved now. So where we used to flip all the time to put money on the table, that's just how I made a living. That was my job. Over time, we wanted to have more rental properties to produce passive income, which I know y'all teach a lot of and do a good job of. So ultimately, the goal was to become more of an investor, not just in the business of being in real estate. That's really what we started at. And so we do occasionally flip a house here and there, but we're more in the passive investing role of we own rental properties. And we have about 110 units now between the two of us, our business partnership. And we have property managers who manage most of that. We still have a small number that we manage ourselves. So like a day-to-day business is a good number of student rentals, small multifamily properties, some houses, some loans. We make loans to other people or have financing. And so the way it looks right now with the coronavirus and things that have happened, it's been different. It's just being nervous about our tenants and their welfare first and foremost. Are they going to have a job? What's going to happen? So it really has brought to roost that we're in this together with our tenants. I feel like we're pretty conservative owning residential properties in lower price ranges typically. But when these kind of things happen and there's a lot of uncertainty, especially early on back in March of 2020, you just realize that, hey, our destiny, our success as an investor has to do with these people who live in our properties. And I've also been very appreciative because for the most part, most of our tenants in our part of the country has been maybe a little bit less affected than other parts. And so they have one way or the other paid their rent. And for most of the people paid their rent. I've communicated with a lot of them, personally to see how things are going. But I don't know, that's where my head is a lot, is just take it week by week, month by month, really appreciative of our tenants, really appreciative of the properties we've bought, and that people see those as their homes and they value that. And so I don't know, that's a lot of what I'm thinking these days.
So I'm curious, how did you guys scale up to 110 units? Like, how did you make the transition from like flipping to deciding you're going to be a buy and hold? And what did
Mhm.
that process look like? I'm super curious because I'm like majority into multifamily syndication. And as of late, I've been trying to thinking about getting into some more buy and holds, maybe some smaller duplexes, single family homes,
Mhm.
just to diversify a little bit. And it just seems like such a daunting process. And I hear about all these people who have like hundreds of single family homes. First of all, the getting over the 10 units thing, I don't even know how people are able to do that. I'm sure it's like something pretty easy, like portfolio lending or whatnot. But yeah, going back to my question, how did you scale? Like, what did that one house to like the first 10 to the 20 to 30?
I think there were two things that helped us scale, and one of which is we did it slower the second time. So like that first scaling I told you was like 2007. Hey, let's just go out, and all of a sudden we have 50 rental properties. Like, congratulations, here
Yeah.
you go. Learn how to manage properties. So that was like the mistake. This time around, coming out of 2009, 8, 9, 10, 11, we slowly accumulated some properties, but it was more about like selling some, buying some others. It was, like kind of replacing the portfolio and trying to constantly improve it. And then by 2015 and 16, we felt like we were on more solid financial footing. All right, we've made it through this. We're doing okay. We've got the knowledge. We've got some money. And so we then started scaling more. And we actually, in 2016, bought a 28 unit property all at one time, like one big purchase. We bought some other ones were like 12 units at a time. But those have been relatively recently, like, last 3 or 4 years. And so I think that couple things. One is the pacing ourselves more on the scaling. I think that's my recommendation to people is there's a book I read, actually recently did a podcast on it, so it's fresh in my mind, called Building Wealth One House at a Time by John Schaub. And the idea is that he's been investing for 40 years in Sarasota, Florida, and he recommends doing one deal at a time. He says houses are his type of investments, but I think even with multi-unit properties, pace yourself, take your time. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's ultra marathon here. And if you start off slower, you'll probably finish faster. And so that's been a big realization for me. The second piece, though, is financing. You brought up the whole 10 loan issue that when you get traditional financing through traditional sources, at some point, no matter what the number is, you're going to get cut off. That's just as you scale. Right. And we had this is the reality of starting our investing career was we were not very bankable. Like, we couldn't go to the bank, get a loan, because I didn't have a regular job. I just graduated from college. Had a degree in biology with a minor in German, had nothing business. I was just like jumping in this business as an entrepreneur with no money. And so I was really unbankable. My business partner had an internet business in 2003, which was like, what? An internet business? Do they make money? Like, is that a blog? What is that? And so like neither one of us really could get bank loans that took big numbers. And so very early we had to learn how to use creative financing, which just means there's a big umbrella of non-bank sources. And for us, the primary sources included getting private loans, primarily from people's self-directed IRAs. That's been a big source of money for me. And I found that to be really effective because if you look at the numbers, there are like trillions of dollars of retirement accounts out there. And a lot of people aren't educated to realize that, they don't have to do all of it, but they don't only have to invest in stocks. There are these basically boutique retirement custodians who allow you to invest some of your money in a self-directed fashion in limited partnerships, syndications, loans. And so what I did was I taught some more experienced investors than me who just didn't know about this, but they had a lot of money. And I said, hey, did you know that you can loan me money from your retirement account? And the first answer they said was, no, you can't. My CPA says you can't do that. And I said, well, I'm not saying your CPA is wrong, but maybe they need to learn more about it. Let's talk about it. And so I educated some people about it, and they ended up being lenders for me. And for my business partners, they loaned us money. We learned how to use seller financing. We learned how to use lease options. We also did some commercial lending a little bit. I've always been hesitant and a little bit nervous about using bank loans and commercial loans, period, because just the fact that you have a stack of mortgage documents that are like 2 inches thick that they've hired a team of attorneys to put together just shows me that I'm a little bit on the losing end of this negotiation because they have every single clause that I will never understand, kind of like an insurance document, that I just don't feel like it's an equal partnership. Whereas when I'm talking directly to a private lender, to a seller, financing person, we have an equal footing in our negotiation, and I can negotiate a win-win agreement, something that works for both of us. Whereas when you depend solely on banks, the banks there's not evil, but I just think you use them sparingly. And in times like this, when there's a recession, banks are not going to be willing to loan you a lot of money anyway. And so you build these other sources of money along the way, and then you're more recession resilient so you can buy more properties during a downturn.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so smart to go beyond the traditional financing. And I think in some ways it was a blessing, right? That you couldn't get the traditional financing.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you might not have made it to where you are today. You would have hit that 10 loan ceiling and you would have been like, well, that's it. We can't do anymore.
Yeah. It was kind of like we worked our muscles, or we had to exercise our muscles just because we had to. We got thrown in the deep end of the pool. We had to learn how to swim. And they're like, okay, this is pretty good. I don't think that's really the way it worked. Once we could get loans, we can get bank loans and do that, but it's not been our choice. We still, like the 28 unit building we bought a couple of years ago, we used a commercial loan for part of that, but then we use private loans for a bulk of it as well.
I'm curious, what kind of returns do you give on the self-directed IRAs?
It's been a range. So when we used to flip houses, we started off paying 10% interest to our investors. So and I try to keep it very simple. And I learned from you, because y'all do bigger deals and syndications and things that I'm still learning from. But my deals have been really, really simple, where we pay them interest and they're the bank, and they just have a mortgage. They just have a mortgage on the property. So typically they would pay us, like our rules were, we're going to try to give you an attractive interest rate. That's evolved over time. We're going to always try to keep you at a low loan to value ratio. So if it's $100,000 property, we don't want them to be any more than 70%. Cents on the dollar, sometimes less. And so if we do that and we get loans from people who are real estate investors, they don't mind owning property. We tell them, like, hey, the worst case scenario here is, there's always a worst case scenario. Let's tell you that up front, is that if we get run over by a bus or we go bankrupt or something happens, you have this property that you own at 70 cents on the dollar, and you're going to hire an attorney and take this property back. And if you're comfortable with that, then make the loan. If you're not comfortable with that, don't make the loan. And so that's how we got started. Over time, though, and this was another recession thing, is we stopped flipping as many houses. So I went back to those same investors and say, hey, we're going to be holding a lot of properties, and we can't pay 10% interest on these properties when we hold them. It just doesn't pencil. And so we said, how about we just pay you 6% interest, but we'll guarantee that for a longer period of time, or we'll have a contract for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And so we basically evolved into more of a buy and hold business. And so our 6% interest only, or 30-year amortization with a 15-year call is kind of the standard that we do these days.
I don't know that a lot of people are aware of that. I know with our investors, a lot of them are aware you can use self-directed IRAs to invest as a limited partner in the deals we do, but I don't know that a lot of them are even aware of that other option. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious, are you guys buying right now? Because it's so, like, it's something we talk about a lot in multifamily too, with everything going on. It's hard to do your underwriting and really, foresee what's happening. And I mean, we think we're coming out of it, but then, they say the second, third wave may come around and winter's going to look bad and all these job losses. I mean, how are you accommodating for that in your underwriting?
I'm a little more, not pessimistic, but I'm being more patient. And part of that, I think, just where we are, like we've accomplished, it's like we're climbing a mountain and we've achieved a certain height on the mountain. It's like, why would I try to do something that slides back down? So I'm just becoming more conservative. But the other thing is my sense of the interconnectedness of the crisis and how much this is going to impact, and I might be completely wrong, but I feel like it's more wide ranging. It's going to impact us over a longer period of time. And so I'm just, I think I heard a metaphor one time, like you don't want to try to catch a falling knife. Like you could catch the knife, but you could also like cut your hand. And that's sort of where I see us right now, is that let's wait to. I don't think in real estate we have the fortune. It's not like the stock market where things change like in a day.
Right.
Even a fast change is going to be 2 or 3 months. And so I think we have the ability to be patient, to wait. We still found deals in 2015 and 16 from the last recession in 2008 and 9. So I think this impulse that we need to get in the deal, we're going to miss out, is probably misinformed. And I think it's just good to be patient, save your money, see what's happening, study the market for sure. If a great deal fell in my lap in some of my target locations, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I would be much more conservative underwriting that right now.
And when you say great deal, what does great deal mean for you?
It has two components. There's the quantitative, the numbers, there's the spreadsheet. Does this meet my return on asset, my return, cash on cash return? Does it have a good growth potential, just like numbers wise? But then the other is just the qualitative. This is another mistake I learned in 2007 and 8. We bought a bunch of deals with great quantitative numbers. The numbers are awesome, great cap rates, great return on investment. But then we looked at the quality of the property and the neighbor and the neighborhood, and we realized that we had missed that balance between the two, and that probably the best deals we've done have had, maybe not like a home run numbers. Maybe we got like a 8 cap or a 9 cap, but the location got better and better and better. And so over the long run, it turned into a much better investment because the quality of that location, the thing that's hard to quantify, got better, and it was more rare, and it was just a desirable location. So for me, a great deal. My local market is close to campus. So the closer you are to Clemson University, the more you are on a bus line, the more walkable the neighborhood. I'm big into walkability, and gotten into my local nonprofits trying to increase sidewalks and bike trails and things like that, because I just like it myself, but I also see that it's kind of a fabric of the community, and the quality locations have that component. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to get a city or a neighborhood to have all this quality. So if you have a building in that quality location, it's even more rare, and there's gonna be a limited supply of it. And so I like to invest in those locations because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It goes back to the, what they teach you in real estate, just generally, right? Location.
Yes.
Kind of go back to that. So
yes, that's right.
You said earlier, part of your portfolio is student housing, right? So how has that been impacted? Are students still in those rental homes at this point, or have they gone home?
Yeah, that's been a big part of the story for us, is that Clemson University and most universities around the country are doing remote school. And so it's a new thing. It's like every recession you go into, it's like you cannot look at the script from the last one, because who would have, college student housing was like the recession-proof type of housing, because people always go to college when they can't get a job, right? Well, it was questionable whether it was the pandemic-proof type investment. And so far, people have paid their rent, but the issue is, let's say the pandemic, we had a relapse, we had, everybody started having to go work from home or go to school from home again in the fall. What happens when students are not coming back for a whole semester again? And that's a unknown. And so that's one of the things we've been cautious about. It's like, well, maybe do we have enough cash? Do we need to save up more reserves? What if our occupancy goes down by half or 25%? And we've really had those conversations, because it's made us nervous about that possibility. Yeah,
because I imagine a lot of students, obviously they're, on a budget, most of them, right? And I would imagine that a lot of them, if they were, just could, do remote learning, that they would just move home. I mean, assuming that that's a feasible reality for them, and then, they lose that expense.
And you could get mom to do laundry again.
Right. Parents are cooking. I mean, like, why?
That's right. Why not?
No more top ramen. I mean, you just,
You're going to have to start offering those services, Chad.
That's you give me good ideas here. All right. So laundry, ramen, home cooking delivered. All right. We got value add here in our town.
There you go. This is like A-class student housing.
Yeah. But seriously, one thing that has become clear, though, like every recession do something. And if you look at this will be informative for people who are doing syndications, all these different types of asset classes. And we student housing to us was a pretty resilient asset class, but it's a little bit like a second home. I mean, in some cases, particularly the luxury student housing, when you live in a place that feels like a resort, and it's got a pool and a lazy river and a clubhouse, and you're paying premium rents for that, that's going to be one of the first things. Those luxury items are always the first things to be cut. I think we're a little bit more resilient because we're on the lower half of the rent in our area. So some places rent for $800 per bedroom. Ours rent for about $300 per bedroom.
Oh, wow.
And so we're kind of at the entry level where our buildings are bought below replacement costs, well below replacement costs. So it's hard to replicate what we have. And it's a little bit more flexible. We have a lot of grad students. We have a lot of international students. We have a lot of people who pay their own way through college. So some of these people we found, when I drive through the parking lots right now, they're still there. They're like, they didn't go home. They're not the sophomore, junior whose parents have a lot of money and they're paying for them to live in the luxury location. These people are usually getting their own scholarships. They're doing their own work on the side, which has been an issue if they work in a restaurant or something. But it seems to be a little bit different niche. So that's, I think when people are investing in something, you want to stress test it. Say, all right, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? What happens if my workers leave here? And try to think through all those different scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's similar to, our approach in multifamily is you're buying the affordable housing, and it's kind of a safe place to be because while it might be cheaper to move home, I mean, at $300 for a room, did you say a room or a bed?
It'd be like a two bedroom apartment. There'd be $300 per bedroom. So my two roommates might pay $600, $650 per apartment.
Yeah, I mean, at that price, you'd really have to wonder if you want to move home and deal with mom down your throat every day. Like, did you do your homework?
Exactly.
Did you do this? Clean up your room and all of that. So, so I like that approach.
We'll get back to our conversation with Chad in just a minute.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate, but aren't sure you have the time or the desire to manage the investment? Perhaps you're afraid, like we were, that you'll make the mistake of choosing the wrong market or the wrong team and lose your entire investment. Well, that's exactly why we created the Goodegg Investor Club. We do the work of identifying solid real estate investment opportunities in the best markets around the country and then partner with you to acquire these investments, and then we'll all share in the returns. We'll identify the growing markets, strong, experienced teams, and the solid deals. We do all the heavy lifting of managing the tenants and the renovations, and as a passive partner, you get to enjoy all the benefits of investing in real estate: monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and the ongoing tax benefits. When we first discovered passive investing through real estate syndications, we realized it fit perfectly into our busy lives. We could put our money to work for our families, work less, and get more time back in our days so that we could focus on what matters most and discover our true passion and purpose in life. We've now helped hundreds of people invest passively in real estate syndications and are seeing the positive impact it's had on their lives. We invite you to partner with us by joining the Goodegg Investor Club today so you can start putting your money to work for you and get more time back in your day, because we know that when people have more time in their days, they can do the true work they were intended to do, and the world will be a better place. To sign up for the Goodegg Investor Club, go to goodegginvestments.com/invest and we'll take it from there. That's goodegginvestments.com/invest.
And now, back to our chat with Chad Carson.
So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about the coaching that you do for my own selfish reasons. I'm just curious to learn more about how you work with your, coaching clients, what that looks like, what a typical person, when they come to you, what is their situation? And then maybe any stories of people that, I took them from here to there. I'm just curious what that all looks like.
Sure. Yeah, it was I started by accident. Like I was investing, and then I went to my local RIA group, like a real estate investor association, and taught a class or spoke. And so I just had some people like, hey, that sounds interesting what you're doing. Could I help? And so I started, it's on the side doing a little bit of consulting, helping people. And instead of 20 free lunches, it was like, all right, let's I'm going to do some consulting. And I started a business called Coach Carson. And it was just sort of a name, like a placeholder, because I was like, well, when I get a real business and a real name, I'll name it something different. But I like sports. I used to play football, and I always loved. I think the thing that resonated with me was I love learning. Like, I'm just a learner. I love reading. I love going to classes. And some of my favorite teachers in my life have been coaches. They've been teachers first and foremost, but they also coaching is a little bit different level where you get involved with, like in sports, you get involved with their technique and what are they doing, and you care about them as a person, and you want to help them do better. And so coach just to me was a neat way of portraying that idea. And it's evolved into something more than just one-on-one coaching. I started a blog in 2015 and just writing articles. And it's always just been about teaching and trying to break real estate investing down for myself, first and foremost, into the most fundamental, basic ways that I can understand it. And then I would share those ideas. And to my surprise, that it was helpful for other people too. And so it's grown from there, from like a blog, and I have a podcast now, and I do some YouTubing. But I also, the way it became a business a couple of years ago, because I was paying a bunch of money out for an email list, I'm like, I got to actually make some money in this business. And so I I started teaching classes. And so I do online courses. And like twice a year, I have this course called Real Estate Start School, which is mainly targeted towards newer investors who, in particular, the niches, they want to either buy a property directly, like a house hack, or a live-in house and then flip it, or maybe somebody who's shifting gears. They've been buying passively before. Now they want to buy their first rental property directly. So that's more the people I work with. I don't actually do as many syndications just because that's not my expertise. It's more about direct ownership. And so I go, what my expertise is helping them kind of build the business plan. Let's figure out the target market you're going to invest in. Let's figure out the financing, like we talked about earlier. You know, not everybody should do creative financing. Some people have good jobs and good credit. Go get a 30-year loan. And so we go through these steps of target market, financing, understanding your team, building your team around you, lead generation. How do you find the deals? All these, I call them like fundamentals, like almost like when you're playing sports. When you play basketball, you have to learn how to shoot. You have to learn how to pass, dribble. Real estate investing has the same thing. They have fundamentals. They're not, a fly-by-night technique that's going to work this year, not work next year. These are the things you just have to learn how to do, almost like you're going back to school. And so that's the approach I take, both with my blog and the courses I teach, is to try to teach people fundamentals and then bring a little bit of touch of coaching where I give some personalized feedback and help and support, and sometimes just, a little bit of encouragement, because sometimes it gets frustrating when you hit a wall and it's not working like you want. So this is a lot of fun. This is when you talk about do what matters, this is the thing that I love spending my time doing, because it's just, I love learning, I love sharing, and I spend a lot less time on my real estate now, maybe 2 or 3 hours a week, sometimes 10 hours, and I do a lot of my time writing and doing interviews like this and getting to help people.
Do you have any stories of people that you've helped? Like, I don't know, a success story, like they came to me with this and now they're here, that kind of a thing?
Yeah. I've had a good number. One that comes to mind for me for some reason is a guy named Michael, who is actually, he edits my podcast now. So that's what just came to mind for me. That's his side business, but he came to me in my class and it was brand new in his 20s, wanted to start investing. And we went through that process that I just talked about. Like the first and foremost, like, all right, Michael, what's your strategy? Like you have all these different things you could do. You could flip houses, you could do rentals, you could do syndications, you could loan money. And for him, he needed a place to live. And so house hacking was a strategy. That was kind of the first step. Let's figure out a strategy you like. So he was going to move into a property, rent out this extra unit or extra bedrooms, and then try to reduce his housing costs. So we started there, and he's in Philadelphia. So he picked an area of Philadelphia that he thought was had more affordable housing, but also was a nice place to live, that he wanted to live. He built his team with his real estate agent, his mortgage broker. He got financing lined up, and he realized that he didn't have enough of a down payment. Even with FHA loan, he only had a few $1,000s, and to pay for repairs and down payments. It took him like 10 months or 12 months to save the money, which I think sometimes people don't want to hear. It's like, I want to get in right now. He had to save his cash. He had to save his down payment. He was very patient with it, and he did that. And about 10 or 11 months later, he made, I think, 12 offers on properties, got rejected 11 times. And on his 12th property, he got one that worked, and he's moved into it. He lives in one unit. He rents out the other one. He's a traveler like I am. So he's able to travel a little bit here and there and live very inexpensively. And that's just one. I mean, every story is a little different. I mean, but I think that process was really informative to me, because it shows how he had patience. It showed how he focused on one strategy and ignored all the other ones for a while. He got his financing lined up. And I think if you kind of look at the fundamentals of a story, you might not be Michael, but if you look at the way people progress and you start, everybody can take something from a story like that.
Yeah, that's I think that's one of the big hurdles that a lot of people face, is not having enough money for a down payment, or just not having. I mean, we have people who come to us, want to invest in a syndication, and they have maybe $150,000 to their name, and that's it. Like that's their net worth is $150,000, and you have to understand what you have and what the best vehicle is for you with what you have. And it also goes back to like money. Do you have more money? Do you have more time? Do you have both? Do you have neither? And that is really the thing that decides which direction, and what the best investment, moving forward is for you.
Exactly right. It's that self-awareness. Like, when I started, I had no money. I had $1,000 and I had to get into the business of real estate investing. Or, there's a lot of people I know who they come to me and they don't really like real estate, the business that much. And I say, well, what are you good at? Like, are you a mechanic? Are you a nurse? Are you, find something you're good at and start a business or go to career. Not, everybody's path is different. And I think that's one of my main messages. Like, I just don't like cookie cutters. Like, cookie cutters are good for like selling courses or they're good for podcast episodes, but they're not good for you getting placed into the cookie cutter because that hurts. You're not the same mold as somebody else. So just listen to podcasts, get ideas, but you are unique, and you're gonna have to have the self-awareness that you just described, Julie, just to know where you are and what you're good at, what you like. And that's challenging. That's where it's not always easy to figure out. But if you do some self-reflection and thinking about it, and listen to podcasts like you have, where you have good mentors and advisors to help you guide you through, I think you can get there.
Yeah, it's so true. Annie?
I wanted to shift gears for a second and talk about your family. I know you have 2 girls, 9 and 7. And so tell us about what you're teaching them about all of this that you're doing, about business, entrepreneurship, about real estate, about finances. What are you hoping that they'll pick up and they'll take forward as they grow up?
I hope first and foremost, this is something that maybe they'll realize now, but maybe they won't, is that I'm there and that my wife is there. I think that was one of when I thought about what matters, is just being a parent. I don't have it all figured out by any means. We don't either, but I do think being present is one of the things that's missing from a lot of parent-child relationships. And so for me, entrepreneurship and investing and financial independence, if nothing else, it gives me the autonomy to be there, just to say, your dad is there. Yes, I work. Like, I want them to see me work. I want them to see that I have passions and projects. And they see me on the computer a lot now. They're like, "What does Dad do? He talks on podcasts." Like, well, yeah, that's true. I do that. And so, but they're getting more of an awareness of like, okay, well, what does that mean? And they actually want to get on YouTube with me now. And I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet. And putting your pretty faces out on YouTube. But kids are so creative, and they love learning. And so it's been fun to talk about business and talk about entrepreneurship and paint it as a creative outlet, as something that you can do it right now. You can, and you don't have to take a lot of risk. You can just try things, and it's okay to fail. Like, there's so many lessons with entrepreneurship that help you build character, be a resilient person with a growth mindset. So I think that those are the things I hope they're taking away. I definitely don't want them to feel like they compare like where we are at a certain point and miss the fact that this is how we got there. These are the steps. This is what, we had to struggle. We had to hustle. We had to, and also have some gratitude for the fact that like my own path, and I try to remind myself of this, was, I had a lot of benefits. I had a lot of leg up. I had parents who were fairly well off. My mom was a dentist. My dad had real estate properties. So like, what a benefit to be able to just look at them and observe them. And I had a college scholarship to pay for my school. So, my origin story had all that background. I just want to remind them and remind myself that, everybody starts at a different point. And what my success looks like with a certain number of properties, a certain amount of income at this level of my life might be completely different than another person. And they might have made it, they've walked 100 miles compared to my walking 2 miles to get where I am. And so I hope that kind of humility message to them also comes through, without feeling like, hey, we've got this properties, this money. I want them to learn how to appreciate where things come from and where they start. And all that, I think all that can come from, again, presence and talking to them about the business and, hey, this is what I'm doing, as they're interested. They're not always interested in everything, but every once in a while they'll walk through the door and come sit on your chair, and you have to remind yourself, I'm working from home for a reason, so that they can be involved in this. And like, what are you doing? What does that mean? What is that? And it's fun to have those conversations.
Do you ever take them to the properties? Any ones that are like local?
Yeah. We've done it with a quarantining in place. That's about a little trickier, but yeah, we have a triplex we're fixing up, and I'm actually documenting it on YouTube. It's a major fixer-upper. I'm kind of regretting that we actually did it, because I forgot how we used to do a bunch of remodels, and now I'm like, wait a minute, this is why I don't like. There's so many details with the remodel. Yeah. But it's a really cool old 100-year-old house that was converted into a triplex years ago, and so it's been a neat transformation. So we'll go over to the property, and they walk in and they're like, "Oh, this smells bad." And I was like, "That's a good deal when it smells bad."
That's the smell of money.
I think they're always going to remember that one. This smells like money, and this is ugly. And But then I show them the before and after pictures. Like, remember that ugly siding, what that looked like? And this is what this blue color looks now. And they're like, ooh, that looks really good. I want to do a house like that. And I think that creativity that comes through, like we talked about before, really, when they get to see it on site and it's physical and it's tangible, that really makes it more real for them.
Have you tried to involve them like financially in any way, like teaching them about like money, or like, do you want to invest in this deal with daddy or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a good idea. We're beginning to play around with that. Like when in my courses that I teach, we send workbooks, and so their job every time we do that is to put the workbooks in the envelope and seal it up and put the letter in there and the stickers, and then I pay them $1 per envelope, and they do like 50 or 70 of them. So so they each split $70. They get like $35 a piece, and they're like, wow,
that's good money.
We are rich. I mean, I'm really overpaying. But then some of the money goes to like a donation fund. Like, all right, we're going to give away some of this. Some of this you're never going to see again. We're going to put in a savings account and put a lock on it. This is for long run. And then you can spend this much. And we try to make it like enough, but it's like a third or a quarter of the money is what you can spend. And that's a really good lesson too, right? It's like you don't get all the money you earn. You can, if you make $1, you only get 25 cents, 50 cents, either by necessity because you have to pay taxes and do everything else, or just because that's the way you achieve financial independence. You actually got to save money. Right. So that's something we're not there yet. We're playing around with that idea of just teaching them that's how to budget your money and do some of that.
Fun. I know Annie's done some of that. She took your son over to a flip that they were doing.
Cool.
That's right. He saved up $100 and he invested in the flip. He thought that he would be able to double or triple his money real quick. And we took him to the house again and again. He was like, "Is it not done yet?" Or we're like, "No, we got to do the kitchen. Now we're doing the bathroom." But he got to see the progress. And at the end, we showed him the financials and we said, "This is what you put into it. This is what we put into it. This is how much went here and there. And then this is how much you get back." We added a little bit of a buffer to it to pad it a little bit, so he wouldn't be too disappointed. But I think he got the overall message that investing is a good way to grow your money.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's so fun. I did that with my girls about a little over a year ago when my daughter turned 6. My youngest daughter, it was her birthday, and she got a bunch of money for her birthday from relatives and whatever. And I asked her if she wanted to invest with mommy in one of my apartment deals. And I showed her a picture of the apartment. And I said, "See, look at the pretty pool and look at all of this." And she says, "Oh, I want to live there." And I said, "Well, how about we don't live there and we live here and we rent it out to somebody else who can live there?" And then, went down the whole thing and kind of taught them about syndication that we've been talking about over the last year. They got the payout. The big payout was her 7th birthday. So after 1 year, they got their big payout and they were all excited. It's fun. It's fun to watch the wheels turn and see them start to kind of understand, like, okay, wait, why are we getting this money? Rent. Oh, right. Rental income. Who is this person? They're a tenant, they're a resident, that kind of thing. So
that's so smart. Yeah, that's fun. It really is fun. And I think who knows what down the road, what they take from that. But if nothing else, like when I was little, my dad had rental properties and he used to take us over there. He used to buy foreclosure properties in the summer in Georgia, and there'd be like dirt, nasty stuff in the refrigerator. And he would just drop me off and say, "Hey, clean this refrigerator out. I'll be back in 3 hours." And I'm like, "Oh, I hate real estate. This is horrible." And, and so there's also positive lessons and going back to what y'all are doing. I mean, it's just, they're going to absorb that and they're going to see it, and who knows, they might not do real estate at all is their main thing, but they're going to remember those lessons and how money worked, and it's such a key period of your life to learn that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's the lessons is the takeaway, right? That can be applied in so many different areas of their lives. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that I want them to take away. So. All right. So we're going to move into the Investing for Good impact round. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So we're going to ask you 3 questions around investing for good. So the first question is investing in yourself. And I think you kind of answered this question already. But what is one way that your investments are helping you to live a better life?
I think it goes back to free time. Is that lesson that we learned in 2007? It's like, wait a minute, lots of money, but what about flexibility? And I actually read a book at that time. There's just the right book at the right time. It was the 4-Hour Work Week. And it was like early in the 4-Hour Work Week phenomenon. And it talked about like money is just one currency of life, that you also have these other currencies like time and flexibility. And more I've realized that investing has done for me and our family is given us just an abundance of time and flexibility. And that's so much better than having $1 billion in the bank. If you can, there's billionaires who have no time and flexibility, and how rich are they? And so we've used that wealth of time and flexibility. For example, my wife's a Spanish teacher and we love travel, and we went to Ecuador for 17 months in 2017 up through 2018. And that experience and that time and that flexibility, because we had some regular income coming in, was just priceless. And that was, I think that's what it's done for us.
That's so cool. How did you guys decide on that place?
Well, we knew Latin America we do Spanish speaking. We wanted them to become fluent in Spanish early in their life. They were 3 and 5 at the moment at that time. And so it was more of a language learning kind of trip and family trip. And so we knew Spanish speaking world. Spain was interesting. We had friends there, but it was a little more expensive. And so we looked in Latin America. We loved Argentina from prior trips, but it was a little bit more expensive to get there. And we just kind of threw a dart at the map basically with Ecuador. And we were like, wow, let's Cuenca, Ecuador. Let's look at that. And they had parks and rivers and beautiful, like the weather was amazing because it's on the equator, but it's about 8,000 feet up. So you have like a 50 to 70 degrees year round and really wonderful people. So we went there not knowing if we would stay, and we loved it. And the girls went to school, local schools, and made friends and spoke Spanish. They took about 5 months, but 5 or 6 months later, they were correcting me. My wife speaks very well. I have a Southern accent, and that shows through in my Spanish, but I can communicate. And my girls at dinner time were saying, "Papa, no se dice eso, no es correcto." And they would correct my Spanish, and it was wonderful, and I loved it.
How that must have been such a hard decision to come home. I mean,
it was. We were on the fence. We were thinking about staying longer. It kind of came down to family. My wife's mother was sick, and we really wanted. And it's back to your roots. Like why are we doing this? We want to be close to family and have people we love. Spend time with them. So, but we plan to travel more. I think that's. Once we get out of the house and this all happens, we're gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Okay, second question is investing in others. So, what is one investment strategy or hack that you might be able to share with our audience that'll help them catapult their investing journey today?
I guess I'll get real specific. I'm always an evangelist for house hacking. I think it goes back to your comment about customizing your approach and just figuring out a way to get into the business that makes sense for you. And for those of you who are willing and able, like if you look at your personal budget, your housing is almost always 30%. So if you're in a high cost of living area, more than that. And so if you can hack your housing, if you can figure out a way to turn your home into an investment, and that really, you might never do any other investments in your whole life, but if you could do something like I did, where you live in a fourplex and reduce your housing expense that way, that's a house hack. If you could move into a house that's just more affordable house and you live there for a year or two, even if you don't rent it while you live there, but then you move out of it and keep it as a rental later on, that's a way to do house hacking. Or you could do a live and flip. So you could, like in high cost of living areas where it's harder to make the rental numbers work, you could find a neighborhood that's up and coming, a house that needs some work, and you could live in it for 2 years and fix it up over time, very slowly, take your time, learn how it works. And because of the tax laws in the US, if you make a profit after living there for 2 years, you can make a tax-free profit of $250,000 as an individual or up to $500,000 as a couple. And that's amazing. Like think about $250,000 to $500,000 in tax-free profit. You don't have to do a lot of those deals to really make a big impact.
Yeah. Maybe I'm going to go look for a flip locally. Drag my family around, uproot them. No, we're living here for 2 years. No, we're going here now. No, this is the next home for 2 years. That's it's
not for everybody.
I remember hearing about that strategy, the tax-free cutoffs and all of that, the 2-year thing. I read it in a Facebook group somewhere. I was like, oh my God, it was like mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, that's like such a great idea. And the house hacking thing, that's where Annie and I both started. And, certainly would not be, where I'm at today had I not started out there. I didn't start off with much, it wasn't like I had hundreds of dollars in savings. It was, 2008 bottom of the market and, had all these tax credits and whatnot that, made it really work. But yeah, that was such a great way. So I love that.
And I'm still house hacking. Still house hacking to this day. We're still living in a duplex.
That's awesome.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So last question is investing in the world. So what is one way that your investments are helping to make the world a better place?
I love that question. Part of it is I've just been able to spend more time. It's kind of like the theme with parenting that, if you have time, you can give back in so many different ways. And my little way is not, it doesn't seem big in some schemes of things, but I've been able to invest in my community a lot more. Like I volunteer. I started a nonprofit in 2015, and it was around bike trails and walking trails, and I just identified in my own town. We were at a local planning meeting, and I was just volunteering, and people were giving feedback. And it came up over and over again that we're this little small town that was basically built around automobiles. And we have all these great things. We have a lake right next to a university with 17,000 acre forests. We have all these natural resources. And yet you have to go anywhere in town. You have to get in your car to drive safely and get my kids to a park, a quarter mile away. And I just thought that was ridiculous. And going down the route, why, asking these questions. And it came up that, a couple of university people have worked on some plans to connect everything with this network of biking and walking trails. And my entrepreneurial question was like, well, has anybody done anything about that? Like, what's going on? Like, no, it's kind of sitting on a shelf somewhere. And so that idea started with me and a couple other entrepreneurs, and then some other local people formed a nonprofit eventually, and it's called Friends of the Green Crescent Trail. And we took this idea from the university professor had, and we've turned it into a movement, and we've got a social media presence, and we got funding for $650,000 in funding from our local city this last year to build the first segment in Clemson. We've got the towns around us also have gotten grant funding. So it's like it's been 4 or 5 years to get to that point, but it's just been really rewarding to see, okay, here's the seed of an idea. Yeah. And you take these same skills you have as an entrepreneur, and you can apply them to social concepts. And I've made zero money. I'll never make any money off of this. It has nothing to do with money. But I think it's just really opened my eyes to the fact that all of us, if I can teach people how to invest in real estate and get their basic bills paid for, there are teachers out there, there are social entrepreneurs, there are people who want to help with housing. There's all these social issues that a lot of us complain about, but we could be solving them using the same skills that we did in our business and entrepreneurship. And that's really been empowering to see. It's made me more inspired to help other people through the Coach Carson stuff to help them achieve financial independence so that we could make the whole world better together.
Oh, I love that. That's like everything. That's everything that we always talk about at Goodegg. That's how Annie and I came together. And is so much of why we do what we do as well, because we feel like if more people could stop thinking about the next dollar and how they're going to, find that or make that and spend more time in the home where they should be, with their family, I just think the world is going to be could be so much of a better place. Yeah. So
I love that you up and just started a nonprofit. It's like the mark of a true entrepreneur. I'm not going to sit back and just complain about this. I'm going to take action and do something. And so you've got the nonprofit, you've got the coaching and your courses and your real estate portfolio. Man, so much. So I know people are going to want to connect with you and learn more from you. Maybe even us. Maybe we'll even sign up for your coaching. So what's the best place for people to go to learn more?
Well, thank you for saying that. And CoachCarson.com is my home on the internet. And so I have, if you like to read, if you like to listen to podcasts, or you like to watch videos, I'm trying to do multimedia, different learning forms. So everything is there, and I have a lot of fun basically every week trying to make some kind of content that's practical. Like that's kind of what I try to be. My signature approach is just approachable, easy to understand. I'm not going to use superfluous, crazy language. I'm going to try to make it accurate, and this is what works, but also in a way that just regular, smaller investors, not the big, huge kind of try to take over the world people who just want lifestyle. They want to do Goodegg type things. They want to change the world. That's who I'm trying to help out and teach and share. So if anybody I would love to connect with you on my site and whatever way works for you.
Chad Carson, creator of CoachCarson.com. Thank you so much for being here with us, Chad.
It's been an honor. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chad.
You've been listening to Investing for Good, the #1 podcast for people like you who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. For more resources, check out goodegginvestments.com/podcast. And be sure to join the Investing for Good Facebook community. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can continue to bring you amazing new conversations every week. Until next time, keep investing for good.